we greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 4 of This Is My Song, the story of Fanny Crosby. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago. The New York Institute for the Blind. This was to be Fanny Crosby's home for more years than anyone would have guessed at the start. At first, homesick and unfamiliar, she wanted to leave the great city. She was 15 when she entered the Institute, and due to their mutual situation, her classmates treated her as a sister. The Braille system of reading and writing for the blind was relatively new to this country, and so was an enterprise such as the New York Institute for the Blind. This was an ideal place for a young girl who had the gift of simple, deep expression. Many important people were watching the work of the Institute with interest. They would soon be watching Fanny.
Come, girls, time to get up.
What time is it?
It's always the same time when she wakes us in the morning. 5:30.
That's what I thought.
I just can't seem to get my eyes open.
Oh, Fanny, what a thing to say.
Well, I suppose we'd better get started, Agnes. We don't want to miss morning prayers.
Oh, I think they're nice.
I only hope whoever conducts them this morning hasn't had his breakfast.
Why?
It's always the ones who have eaten that pray the longest. They forget that we're still waiting to eat.
You know, Fanny, you've changed a lot since we started school here at the Institute.
Have I?
Yes. You used to be so, I don't know.
Simple?
Well, yes, but not in the bad sense of the word.
Maybe I'm just beginning to find out how much there is in living, Agnes.
Maybe. And maybe...
Maybe what?
Oh, I don't know. Come on, let's get dressed and go to prayers.
A few months at the Institute had seen changes in Fanny. She was excellent at her studies, except for math. Her verses, usually hastily written, were gaining her admiration from her cronies and even some of her instructors. She seemed to be a natural leader, and she took advantage of this ability.
It's Pearl and Mabel.
Come in, quickly. I thought you'd never get here.
Mrs. Payne stopped us in the hallway.
Did you tell her anything?
You know us better than that, Fanny.
Good. Well, that makes all of us. The meeting of the Secret Order of Poets will come to order.
Come on, let's be quiet.
Mabel will present her latest poem first. Go ahead, Mabel.
Thank you. I've titled this simply, Fall. I like the fall, the best of all, better than anything. I like it better than snow and ice, but I don't like it better than spring.
Very good. I've written a short work on my progress in arithmetic lessons.
Come on, Fanny, let's hear it.
All right, here it is. Multiplication is vexation. Division is as bad. The rule of 3 puzzles me, and fractions make me mad.
Oh, really?
Yes, Fanny seemed to have changed. Her secret poetry club met behind closed doors to create self-esteemed masterpieces. Her popularity grew among her classmates, and her serious attempts at poetry were causing favorable comment among the faculty. But Agnes, her roommate, saw more than an outgoing, enthusiastic girl. She could excuse Fanny's loudness, sometimes verging on cynicism, because she knew the Fanny Crosby who, at night, after the commotion of the day had died, almost asleep, would cry in anguish into her pillow.
Blind! Blind! Blind!
Come in, Miss Crosby.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
I suppose you know what I want to speak to you about.
I'm afraid not.
Really? I thought the news would have spread to the whole Institute by now. We're expecting a rather famous visitor this afternoon.
Oh? Who, sir?
The President of the United States.
The President?
I said he was rather famous. Yes, President John Tyler is paying our Institute a visit. I'd like you to participate in the welcoming ceremonies.
But the President...
Come now, Miss Crosby. You've welcomed many notables here with your poems. Surely you...
But never the President.
Miss Crosby, I suppose you know that we of the New York Institute for the Blind regard you as, how shall I say, our prize pupil. Your poems have greatly impressed us and our guests. In fact, it's largely due to your contribution that we're being helped by interested people. You might look on all of your past experience on welcoming committees as training ground for this afternoon's task. We expect a great deal from you.
Well, if you'll give me 10 or 15 minutes, I shall have the best welcome that I can prepare in a short time. And this the glad song of our nation shall be. Hurrah for John Tyler and Liberty's tree!
Mr. President.
I am deeply moved by this fine welcome. The world has many misconceptions about blindness as a handicap, and it is works such as this fine establishment which shall ultimately change those misconceptions. I am especially grateful to this young lady for her poem of tribute. You're a very talented woman, Miss Crosby.
And then what happened, Fanny?
Well, there he was, William Seward, the great governor of the great state of New York.
Oh, Fanny.
Doing our little institute a favor by visiting us. I couldn't let him strut around like a... I don't know what.
Well, what did you do?
I had my knitting with me, so I accidentally dropped my ball of yarn. There, I thought. Chase after that. Be a big, strong man and bring me my yarn back. And while you're at it, I thought, say something nice. Something condescending and quotable.
Oh, no. Well, did he?
Exactly. Step by step, the way I knew he would. I'm sure everyone was impressed by his act of kindness to a poor blind girl.
Oh, Fanny, you're terrible.
The old windbag.
Shh. I'll find out who it is.
It's Pearl.
Oh, come in.
I thought you couldn't come tonight.
I just found out the news. I had to tell you.
Well, what is it?
News?
We're having a visitor tomorrow.
Another one?
Who this time?
Count Henri Bertrand. He was Napoleon's field marshal.
Napoleon's field marshal.
Oh, my.
Fanny will probably be asked to give a poem.
Yes, and maybe you can drop your knitting for him, too. Fanny, are you still here?
Yes, Mabel, I'm still here.
But what's the matter?
Nothing. Meeting adjourned.
How come?
What's the matter?
I just want some time to think, that's all.
Did I say something wrong?
Count Bertrand is a great soul. I must write something equal to him.
You're serious.
Come on, girls. I think Fanny's in one of her moods again.
Think of it. With the Emperor Napoleon. With him until the end. when by those he loved deserted, thine was still a faithful heart. Thou wert proud to share the exile of the hapless Bonaparte. Like an angel whispering comfort, still in sickness thou wert nigh. And when life's last scenes were over, tears of anguish dimmed thine eyes.
Thank you, Miss Crosby. How did you know that I had sat with my head in my arms and wept as the life of the great general slowly ebbed away? God bless you. Oh, I wish you could have known the Emperor.
Fanny Crosby, as any young poetic girl, had moods ranging to extremes. When she was happy, she was contagious. When she was low, she was pathetic. Throughout, her expression, her poetry remained at the common level. Her listeners laughed and cried, but were rarely puzzled. Hamilton Murray, member of the board of the New York Institute for the Blind and poetry enthusiast, took a personal interest in her, encouraging her to fill her astounding memory with long passages of classical poetry. He held that by imitating the classics, she could refine her own verse and mature into a serious writer. Yes, Fanny Crosby's dark world seemed bright with promise. And, again, as any young girl who has made a great fuss over, Fanny became not a little vain.
Come in, Fanny.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Do you know why I've sent for you?
I suppose that we are to receive another distinguished visitor, and you would like me to write something in his honor.
There's a chair a little to the left of you, Fanny. Please sit down.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Fanny, I'm sorry you've allowed yourself to be carried away by what others have said about your verses.
Sir?
It's true you've written a number of poems of real merit, but how far do they fall short of the standard that they might attain? You have real poetic talent. Crude, undeveloped, but certainly true talent. But your poetry seems to have another aspect, one that concerns us very much. It seems almost a form of, what shall I call it, self-indulgence. It takes precedence over everything, studies, relationships, everything. Fanny, whatever talent you possess belongs wholly to God, and you ought to give Him the credit for all that you do. Now, it hurts me to do this, Fanny, but I feel it's for your own good. I'm going to ask you not to write so much as a line of poetry for 3 months. Not a line.
Not a line of poetry for 3 months. Fanny described this order later as a bolt of lightning out of the clear sky. Her inner life seemed suddenly at a standstill. And so we conclude Chapter 4 of This Is My Song, the story of Fanny Crosby. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.